All right, let's get right into it. There's this incredibly powerful political reflex that can snap a divided country into perfect unity almost overnight. But here's the catch. It can also be a tool for mass deception. We're talking about the rally round the flag effect. And honestly, if you want to understand how power works, you have to understand this.
So think about this for a second. Some major crisis hits the world stage, and what happens? Suddenly, all the political squabbling kind of fades into the background. We instinctively line up behind our leaders, even ones we might have been criticizing just the day before. Why? What is that impulse? That's the mystery we're going to unpack together.
Well, there's a name for it, the rally round the flag effect. A political scientist named John Mueller was the first to really put a finger on it back in 1970. He described this sudden and often massive spike in public support for a leader right when an international crisis kicks off. It's not just a political trend, it's a deep-seated part of our psychology.
Here's a great way to think about it. Public opinion acts like a kind of societal immune system. The moment it detects an external threat, like a virus for the country, it doesn't sit around and debate. It just consolidates, it unifies, it gets ready to fight back. It's a national defense mechanism, firing on all cylinders.
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we need to look under the hood at the psychology. I mean, what is actually going on inside our brains that makes us circle the wagons so fast?
What's so wild is that you've got all these different theories, but they all point to the same thing. You've got social identity theory, which says our identity as citizens suddenly becomes way more important than our political party. Then there's terror management theory, which, sounds intense, and it is. It says that when we're faced with the fear of death, we are drawn to strong, decisive leaders. You mix all that together, and you get this incredibly powerful psychological cocktail pushing us toward unity.
But wait, it's not just what's in our heads. This effect gets put on steroids when the political opposition suddenly goes quiet. And this is where the media plays a huge role. There's this idea called indexing theory, which basically says the media's range of debate often mirrors the debate among political leaders. So if the opposition party stops criticizing the president, journalists have no dissent to report on. All you hear then is this one-sided pro-government narrative. It creates this echo chamber of unity.
So if this rally is such a natural, predictable human reflex, you can probably guess what comes next. Someone, somewhere, figured out how to exploit it. And this is where the story takes a dark turn, from national unity to cynical political deception.
It's called the Diversionary Theory of War. You might also hear it called the scapegoat hypothesis. The idea is brutally simple. If things are going terribly for you at home, the economy's in the tank, you're caught in a scandal, you start a fire somewhere else. You manufacture an international crisis to change the subject and, you hope, trigger one of those life-saving rallies.
And then there's an even more high-stakes version of this. It has this incredible, almost cinematic name: gambling for resurrection. This is what leaders do when they're truly desperate, when they feel like they have absolutely nothing left to lose. Okay, so put yourself in their shoes. You're a leader, and you are facing certain political annihilation, impeachment, a landslide loss, you name it. At that point, your calculations change completely. Starting a war and losing it? Well, that's no worse than the political death you're already facing. But a dramatic, long-shot victory? That could be your only way out. For a leader in that position, starting a war can become a terrifyingly rational choice. And believe me, this isn't just a theory from a textbook. History is absolutely littered with examples of leaders who decided to roll the dice. Let's take a look at some of the most famous ones. You can see the pattern clear as day. It goes way back to 1898 and the USS Maine, where newspapers whipped up a frenzy that led to war. Fast forward to 1964, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, based on shaky intelligence, gave the green light for the Vietnam War. Then in '82, Margaret Thatcher's political career was on the ropes. She gambles on the Falklands War and wins big. By 1998, the public was so hip to this that when President Clinton ordered missile strikes during his impeachment, people immediately called it a wag-the-dog situation, right out of the movie.
I mean, this table just lays out the playbook. Look at Reagan. He was taking a ton of heat for the tragic Beirut bombing. What happens next? A surprise invasion of the tiny island of Grenada. And just like that, the news cycle flips. It's a tried and true formula.
But then there was 9/11. This wasn't manufactured. It was a genuine, horrifying crisis that produced the mother of all rallies. Just look at this. A typical rally gives a leader a little bump, maybe 5-7 points. George W. Bush's approval rating went from 51% to 90%. That is just off the charts.
It was a rally unlike anything we had ever seen.
And that's where we get to the really critical part. What did that rally do? Well, that unprecedented wave of unity lasted for 14 months. And in that atmosphere of hyper-patriotism, any kind of dissent or debate was effectively silenced. This created the perfect political environment to pass the USA Patriot Act with almost no opposition, fundamentally changing the balance between security and civil liberties.
So that brings us right up to the present day. After all this history, is this powerful political tool still as reliable as it once was? Or is the rally effect itself, well, fading away?
A lot of political scientists today would say, yes, it is fading. They've even got a great name for it, the dog that won't wag. The basic idea is that in today's world, leaders just can't count on a crisis to bail them out anymore.
And when you look at the data, it's pretty clear. Modern rallies, when they even happen, are usually small and they disappear in a flash. Think about the COVID-19 pandemic. For a minute there, leaders all over the world got a boost, but that unity just crumbled into the same old partisan fights almost immediately. The shock wears off, and we go back to our corners.
So, what's the #1 reason for this? It's our media. Back in the day, you had 3 major TV networks, and pretty much everyone got the same story. Today, we're all in our own hyper-partisan news bubbles. There's no single narrative for a rally to form around. The ultimate proof might be what some call the Obama anomaly. He faced multiple international events that should have triggered a rally, but nothing, not a single one.
And this leads us to the final and frankly devastating long-term cost of this whole phenomenon. Some have given it a pretty chilling name: institutional sepsis.
Think about it. Just like sepsis is a life-threatening infection in the body, repeatedly manipulating public trust is like a poison for democracy. It eats away at our institutions. And this isn't just a feeling. Look at the numbers. Public trust in major U.S. institutions has dropped 22 points since 1979. When citizens learn they've been misled, that their fears have been weaponized, the very fabric of society starts to fray.
Which leaves us with a really tough final question. That rallying instinct, it was a powerful force for unity. But if it's been manipulated so often that we just can't trust it anymore, then what can we trust when the next real crisis hits? Maybe the answer isn't some new instinct, but a new awareness. Because knowing how this game is played is the first step toward becoming a citizenry that can unite when it needs to without ever having to sacrifice the truth.